The word epiphany is a Greek word which means to be manifest, or more clearly, to appear openly. Each year, our church celebrates this feast, in which it declares that with Jesus' birth, we once again acknowledge that God is made visible in our world. Even as an infant, the Christ child created a stir that unsettled a capital city, disturbed a reigning king, and attracted foreigners to come and to recognize the Savior born in Bethlehem. The familiar story of the Magi, which is found only in Matthew's gospel, captures the heart of his gospel. He wrote it around the year 80 AD, and Matthew reveals Jesus as the Messiah to Israel and widens the message to include all nations. Now, the image of a rising star in the heavens, the signal of the birth of the King of the Jews, was a fact that resonated with Matthew's Judeo-Christian community. The phrase was familiar because it reached back into Jewish and Hebrew history. In the book of Numbers, for example, the prophet Balaam prophesied a rising star advancing from Jacob, anticipating the rise and the reign of King David. Also, the rising star in our gospel this morning coincides with Jesus' lineage as David's direct descendant, which Matthew traces in his opening chapter. Then when Matthew recounts that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, he affirms that the place of Jesus' birth fulfills the prophecy of the prophet Micah. Now, the role and the identity of the Magi, foreigners from afar, looms large in Matthew's story. That they have come from the east and they have followed the star rising suggests that they are specialists in astrological signs and beliefs about celestial events. They are not Jews, and thus they probably worshiped other gods. Yet these outsiders from regions beyond Israel are the first to recognize and honor the infant child as the long-awaited King of the Jews. Like the larger message of Matthew's gospel, this feast celebrates that the Christ child not only comes as Messiah for the Jews, but as the Savior for all the nations. We hear this also in today's responsorial psalm at our Mass today. Such news of the birth of the new King of the Jews, however, is of course greatly troubling to Herod and all of Jerusalem. The existence of an expected ruler would contest or even replace Herod's position of power. Thus, Herod consults the chief priests and the scribes in order to find out where the expected Messiah would be found. The ill intent that motivates Herod's instructions to the Magi to return and inform him of the whereabouts of this new ruler sets up a clear contrast between Herod's disposition towards the birth of Jesus and that of the Magi. These wise men seek to find and to worship the child. Herod, claiming for himself the status of the King of the Jews, determines to find and to destroy the child. These Magi present the newborn king with three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. As they travel from the ancient world, people typically would have made such journeys, extended journeys, in larger numbers. Well, we don't know how many of these wise men actually figured in the story. Their presence and their gifts coincide with the prophecy of Isaiah that we heard in our first reading this morning. Caravans of camels that fill you, all from Sheba, shall come bearing gold and frankincense and proclaiming the praises of the Lord. Of course, that third gift of myrrh, not mentioned in the prophecy, is of course a foreshadowing to the suffering and death of Jesus on the cross, myrrh being an anointment for those who have died. As we consider this feast day today in our world today, often we look around at people in our midst, and sometimes we see and designate people as quote-unquote outsiders or quote-unquote as others because they do not believe in our traditions, or they may display unfamiliar customs or cultural beliefs or different historical backgrounds, yet they also are among those to whom God's salvation extends. They may hear God's invitation differently from how our religious traditions formulate it, or they may experience the divine presence in ways that are different from our sacramental and spiritual encounters. But our great infinite God makes his divine revelation and God's love available in ways that always surpasses our human expectations. So, to celebrate this holy feast of Epiphany, let us imagine ourselves kneeling alongside these outsiders, both ancient and contemporary, alongside magi from other regions and faraway places. So humbly, amidst all our differences, let us acknowledge and witness together this epiphany of our God, a God whose salvation is intended for all.